VeloVoices. Many voices, one passion. Pro cycling for fans by fans.
Hello and welcome to podcast number 11, Ashley, for VeloVoices. This is Chris in Virginia, and I'm joined by Tim and Kathy, who are both in London.
Hello.
Hello, both of you.
Hello.
Hi.
So just a little bit of warning. We are having some technical difficulties tonight with our Skype and call recorder and all the technology that we use to make this recording. So if the audio is a little rough this week, we apologize. Anyway, regardless of that, we just witnessed the end of the Giro. This is actually Tuesday after the Giro, which we're doing our recording. And today we're going to talk about the final week of the Giro. We're going to talk about, of course, our favorite moments and the things that surprised us. We'll review the riders that we were looking at, and I think 3 of them abandoned the race, so we probably won't talk much about them. And then, of course, we will review our Giro Fantasy League, which turned out to be a real hoot. So with that, I will start, and we'll start talking about the stages. Stage 16 of the Giro d'Italia was a medium mountain stage, and it resumed after the rest day. So, of course, you're never sure what's going to happen after rest day. And it was an interesting stage. I gave it a star rating, guys, of a 4 out of 5, just because of the last 20 kilometers alone. Essentially after the Category 3 climb, which was the last climb, I think it's called the Andrate, Bennett and Chousty won a 3-man sprint against Tano Kangert and Przemysław Niemowicz. I think I just butchered that. Anyway, the threesome went clear in the final kilometers, and Chousty won the sprint. It was basically Movistar's second consecutive win of the Giro with the rest day in between. It was super exciting. The descent off the Andrade was super exciting with Samuel Sanchez kind of leading an attack there, and I thought, this is Samu's chance to get a stage win. He'll out-descend everybody, and then he'll win. But it didn't end up that way. Nibali led the group back. There was a kind of a large group of about 18 guys, but then attacks just started right and left, and then Chousty ended up winning basically with 4 guys that split off at the end. So Perazzi continued his mountain quest during this stage and kept his aggressiveness going, and Sant'Ambrogio lost huge time. He finished 2:24 after Chousty, and then I think he was basically about 2 minutes behind the GC leaders. So, Tim, what about stage 17?
Yeah, so if Chousty made it back-to-back stages for Movistar on 16, then Giovanni Visconti made it back-to-back wins for the Spanish team on stage 17. It was a nice quiet day for the GC contenders, really. A long flat stage with the sting in the tail, so a Category 4 climb about 20 kilometres from the line. Star rating, probably about a 3 out of 5. The sprinters teams worked hard to work it, to reel in the day's breakaway. But the tempo on the climb, which was pretty fast, proved a little bit too much for the likes of Mark Cavendish. So Visconti bridged across on the climb, and then he attacked solo and held off what was by then a reduced chasing pack by 19 seconds. So, 3 in a row for Movistar, 4 in total. Absolutely brilliant race for them, and for Visconti too. He's been national champion of Italy 3 times, but he's come in for a lot of criticism from his home press in the past because he's basically won very little else. But in this race, he's answered his critics with 2 wins, both of them taken with quite a bit of style.
Yeah, that was. I'll tell you what, Movistar has been super impressive during this Giro, and we'll talk more about them a little later. All right, so Tim, I didn't get to see this because I was traveling, but tell us about the Stage 18 time trial, which was where we thought kind of the GC would almost be, fully locked in, possibly.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what happened. So Stage 18 was a 20.6 kilometre uphill time trial, pretty much a long, hard slog all the way up. Star rating, a 2 out of 5. It's a time trial. It's difficult to get too excited about it, but certainly in terms of the end results, it was a very eventful stage. And you've got to feel sorry for Sammy Sanchez. He posted a fantastic time. He looks like he might finally make up for what has been a very disappointing Giro for him, with the not inconsiderable consolation of a stage win. Only then for the last man up the hill, Vincenzo Nibali, to beat him, and not just beat him, but by almost a full minute. And Nibali was so dominant that he nearly caught Cadel Evans, who'd started 3 minutes ahead of him by the line. So Evans just about managed to hold on to second place, but Rigoberto Urán, who had a fantastic time trial, closed the gap to Evans to just 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I've got to say, Urán always looked... He just didn't look like he was moving very fast. It was so deceptive. And he actually... I thought at one point he looked like he was like Miss Marple. Just tooling along uphill.
Yeah, it was practically immodest, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, and Cadel on Twitter, you could tell he wasn't having a great day. And on Twitter, it's almost like he seemed really discouraged by his performance. So,
yeah, and as you said, Chris, Nibali came out of this stage with a 4-minute lead, and it was game over as far as the GC was concerned.
Yeah. And then we had stage 19, Kathy. Give us a brief rundown of that.
Well, that was a very exciting stage. It was a mountain stage. I'm going to give it a star rating of 0 because nothing happened. It was cancelled due to weather. And one thing I would say is my new big crush, Michele Acquaoni, and we are going to be the Aquanets. He'd said that it wasn't just the riders that they were concerned about because of the cold and the snow and everything, but actually, and I hadn't even thought of this, but everybody that works at it, because the riders, I mean, they're doing their physical, exertion, so, they can keep warm to a certain extent, but just having people standing there for hours, and risking frostbite. So, it's disappointing that they had to cancel it, but I mean, I think it was, definitely the right decision, and it was a brave decision actually from him.
Yeah, Tim, you and I talked about this a little bit last time about modifying the stages and canceling the stages. Was that the right thing to do? I don't think anybody can make the argument that canceling the stage wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's hard to make that argument, isn't it? I think I think as we said last time, it's the same reason that they have safety cars in Formula One. You have to balance spectacle against safety.
Yeah. All right. Well, if stage 19 was a 0 out of 5, stage 20, Tim, was a 5 out of 5, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, this was a stage that did not go unaffected by the weather. We had all the early climbs removed, but we still had the summit finish at Tre Cime di Lavaredo to finish with. And what an epic finish to the stage it was. The climb was freezing cold. It was snow lines. We had blizzards near the top, and best of all, even though all Nibali needed to do was to defend his position, he went out, he put the hammer down, he attacked in the final 3 kilometers and soloed away to victory. And that was fantastic to see. A rider attacking because he wanted to win, not defending because he had a position to hold on to. We then had a Colombian 2-3-4, Fabio Duarte, Rigoberto Urán, and Carlos Betancourt. So Urán took second overall, and Betancourt took the white jersey. And then we saw poor Cadel Evans finally crack. I think he had some mechanical problems with sticking gears, but he did still haul himself up to the summit to at least preserve a podium finish. And epic is the only the word you can use to describe this.
It's a brilliant stage.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and I'll tell you what. That young rider competition in that stage, that was the race to watch. And it was really impressive again to see Betancourt and Cadel Evans come up to the top of that with no arm warmers and no leg warmers on. Incredible. Okay, so then of course we have our stage 21, Kathy, which was a processional stage, right?
Yeah, that was a sprint finish. Star rating, I'm going to give it a 1 out of 5 because I mean. It's about the spectacle. It's about doing circuits. It's like it's like the tour in Paris. I mean, I don't. It's a sprint finish. Cavendish is going to win. So they get into Russia, and the one amusing thing was Mark Cavendish sprinted for the intermediate points about 5 times before finally getting the right one. And then he won the stage because obviously Kais basically hauled him in. So he's... And
Now, Tim,
that's really what happened.
Tim, would you agree that this stage was a 1 out of 5?
You would.
In many ways, yes, I would. I think it was a bit of an odd stage, wasn't it? Because we had that strangeness about when exactly the intermediate sprints were.
Yeah.
And I was kind of expecting, Astana would lead Nibali onto the closing circuits, and then someone would attack. Same as happens when they hit the Champs-Élysées in the Tour, but nobody did. It was bizarre. It was like they all decided, you know what, we'll let Cavendish have the red jersey.
I think
that was it.
I think they were just terrified that they were going to get a piece of his mind, because every time anybody tried to pick up anything, any sort of intermediate sprint points, he would just unload this. I mean, I thought I swore a lot. Jeez. So I think they just didn't want to get punched or something.
All right. So then we had Nibali get crowned on that big pink chair that looked like it was 3D printed.
It looked like it was made of Play-Doh, I thought.
Yeah, it was a Play-Doh press. Yeah, that was interesting. I think that outdoes the throne that Wiggins sat on at the Olympics, by the way. So, all right. So, Tim, give us a rundown of who won what and where we stood as far as the different jerseys.
Okay, let's start with the GC then. So, winner obviously Vincenzo Nibali. Rigoberto Urán was second, fully 4 minutes and 43 behind. So, quite a big winning margin really in the end. And that's the most successful performance by a Colombian at the Grand Tour in something like 26 years. So, really big achievement for him. Cadell became the oldest man to podium at the Giro since 1928, I think it is. So he was third. Scarponi fourth, who we barely noticed all race. Betancourt winning the white jersey in fifth. Przemysław Niemiec from Lampre, again, he was sixth. Micah, who just lost out on the white jersey, was seventh. And then in eighth, ninth and 10th, we had Benjatin Chausti, Mauro Sant'Ambrogio, who faded a little bit in the final week, and then Betancourt's teammate Domenico Pozzovivo. So that was the top 10, and I don't think anyone can really argue that Nibali's final margin of victory wasn't fully deserved. And actually, had the course not been so drastically affected, I suspect probably his winning margin would have been even bigger than it was. But I thought it was great to see the two guys not just slugging it out for the young riders jersey. But finishing as high as they did, 5th and 7th, remarkable achievement for two young guys.
Yeah. And then, of course, we had Mark Cavendish winning the points jersey with 158 points. The closest guy to him was the GC leader, Vincenzo Nibali. And then, of course, we had Cadel Evans, who actually wore the red jersey several times during the Giro with 111 points. And then a young Carlos Betancourt, and then Giovanni Visconti. So what do you think? What did Cav have to do to win this one, Tim?
Yeah, I think, we talked about stage 19 being cancelled, but actually stage 19 did have a winner, and it was Mark Cavendish.
Right.
Because it was a mountain stage where neither Cadel nor Nibali could score points. I think if Nibali had won that stage, the lead he would have taken into the final stage would have been 36 points rather than 11. And there were only 41 available on the final stage. That would have left Cav with absolutely no margin for error. So, I think if you look at the parkour, it's incredible actually that the sprinter was able to win the red jersey this year, and it took someone winning 5 stages to do it.
Yeah, and the pictures of Cavendish coming up to the top on stage 20, I mean, he looks pretty rough. So, kudos to him for doing that. All right, and then in the King of the Mountain, what happened there, Tim?
Yeah, so effectively this was a 2-horse race for certainly the second 2 weeks. So Stefano Pirazzi from Bardiani Valvoli ended up with the blue jersey. It was his key objective going into it, and he got into the right moves on the right stages. So he ended up on 82 points. Then Giovanni Visconti was some way behind in the end on 45. And Nibali also joined him on 45 points. So, a little bit anticlimactic, and actually Pirazzi didn't win the jersey on the road. He won it because stage 19 was cancelled. Not that he wouldn't have won it anyway, but it was a little bit of a disappointment for him to win it in that fashion.
Yeah. And then what I thought was the most exciting competition of the entire Giro, the best young rider competition, we had Carlos Betancur basically winning it on the second to last stage, the summit finish there, where Nibali comes in first. So he won. He beat Rafael Majka by 41 seconds, and it all happened on that stage where Betancur basically had to come back from a mechanical, get back up to the main field, and then put time into Majka. So Majka got second, Wilco Kelderman got third, Ada Puma from Colombia got fourth, and then Diego Rosa from Androni got fifth. And then, Tim, what about our team competition?
Yeah, so no great surprises, really. I think if you'd had to name the 4 strongest teams, you'd have said that they'd have been Astana, Sky, Movistar, and Lampre. And in the end, Sky won the team classification by about 5 minutes, with Astana second, Movistar third, and Lampre fourth. So, the team competition isn't particularly highly regarded, and but it's a nice little consolation prize for Sky to go along with Uran's second place overall.
Yeah. And, for me, honestly, I mean, I know the team competition is based on total team time, but for me, the 2 teams of the Giro were Movistar and Quick-Step. I mean, what they did and what they were able to do with their team and work as a team was pretty impressive. So, all right, Tim, last week you and I made some predictions.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Oh, well, I was hoping you weren't going to mention that.
So, it was between Sant'Ambrogio and Uran, and I had thought that Uran was going to be in third position, but it turns out that he and Evans swapped, so it was Nibali, Uran, Evans instead of Nibali, Evans, Sant'Ambrogio. So, we made a good guess, and I think overall we did pretty well. So, all right. And Kathy, I know you predicted Kaiser to win the whole thing, but it just didn't happen.
Well, he was so close.
He was.
He really was.
All right. So, Kathy, what was your favorite moment of week 3?
I would say, well, there's 2. I mean, I think these are kind of the same. I think Nibali's time trial and then his mountain stage win. Because basically, you know what? He stamped his authority all over that race. I mean, he just, he came out and he rode it like a champion. And I just think it was great. Yeah.
How about you, Tim?
Yeah, I think for me, Nibali attacking when he didn't need to on stage 20, really marked him out as being a true competitor and a true champion. He could have quite happily just sat in the wheels, followed everyone over the line and collected his victory, but he didn't. And I think that speaks volumes about the man.
Yeah, I mean, it really was incredible to see Nibali's panache. And you could tell when he was holding up the trophy at the end just how much he had given. And I know, Kathy, that you really got into this with the tears that were coming down his cheeks.
I just thought that was I love it when they cry. I really do. I love it when they cry when they lose. I love it when they I just love people crying. But, he was trying so hard to keep it together. But when he was singing the national anthem and then he couldn't even sing it anymore. I just thought that was just really quite priceless. I really liked that.
So next podcast, Kathy, I'm going to cry like half of the podcast.
And Tim can cry the other half.
Yep, that'll do. Well, watching Nibali, obviously that was fantastic. I really did enjoy the young mountains. Young mountain climbers. That's what they were. The young riders competition between Betancur and Majka. I mean, that stage 20, those guys kept switching that jersey back and forth. And I thought that Betancur was done for when he had the mechanical.
Yeah, so
and for his team to really get him back in the mix. And then he kind of hung on the end there. And then as it got steeper and steeper, he just had the legs and went for it. And I really, really enjoyed the panache of that young Colombian. So that was a fantastic race within the race. All right, now, Kathy, a week ago, Tim and I did this podcast without you because you were in Italy at the Giro d'Italia.
Yes, I was.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience?
Well, I went with my friend Roz. She's got a cycling tour thing called On the Road Cycling, and and so we did stages 14 and 15. So on the Saturday, I was in, and I can't even pronounce it, Brenanechia. There you go. That's where I was. And what I really liked was that it was just this little town, and everybody had put up something pink. There were teddy bears on bikes suspended from shop, windows. I took so many pictures of weird pink things. There was a raven, a plastic raven in a pink baby doll nightgown, and they just anything pink. They were going to wrap around stuff. And then there were the 2 dolls that gave, I think, velocentric nightmares when he saw the picture. But it was really great. And unfortunately, I didn't get up the mountain because it's the first time I'd had gone to mountain stages, because I've been to the flats and I've been to Paris, obviously. But it's one of those things where you kind of don't know where you're going. And so you're kind of waiting around, and then I just missed the opportunity to get up there. But I picked a really good spot where when they were coming into town, I was right on a corner, on the 90-degree corner.
Oh,
so
awesome.
They had to sort of slow down. You could see them coming from far off, and it was really wet. And it's just like, you just stand there in the rain and think, what in the world am I doing? I'm out of my mind. And then you hear, then you see the outriders come, and then you hear the helicopter, and you just get so excited. And I mean, if any of them had crashed on that corner, they'd have crashed right into me, because I was right on it.
All right.
But that was really great. And then the next day we went to the start, and we got there early enough before the team buses. So we scoped that all out, and I thought, this is it. I've got to get either Koen de Kort or Taylor Phinney to do a 5 quick questions. And I got Koen de Kort, which you'll hear in a second. But he was so nice and so articulate, and just, it lasted about a minute, but it was, that's what I love about cycling, is they're so accessible and so lovely. And didn't get a chance to talk to Taylor Phinney. I mean, come to find out, he was not feeling well. So, he kind of had that kind of don't talk to me kind of look. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And
sure.
so I thought, I'm just going to leave it because I'll say something stupid. But then this little kid came up with his dad, and he was so sweet to him. And he's like, of course I'll give you the autograph and, take pictures and stuff. So I just thought that was really sweet. Then we went up to the base of Galibier, and I just started walking up the mountain after a while and thinking, okay, how far can I get before they come? And I didn't get that far up, but I did, again, get a really good spot where you could see them coming from way off. And it's just, they go by really fast, but it's just, it's something I'll just never forget. It's the atmosphere, and it's just fantastic. So, yay.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's play this 5 questions with Koen de Kort. Here it is.
Oh, hey! First one is, who's your favorite roommate?
John Degenkolb, definitely favourite roommate. I room with him most of the time. Yeah, so I'm by myself now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You get a whole room to yourself?
Yeah. Well, we're on even number now, so being one guy is by himself, and seeing as John left the race last, it's me.
Oh, cool. So what's your favourite race to ride?
Well, it's a tough one. I do really like to race Tour of Flanders just because of the whole atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then I do like to race in the sun and stuff. So I really enjoyed Tour Down Under, especially also because it's my sort of adopted country, Caitlin's country. Yeah.
Excellent. And what race would you most like to win?
Tour of Flanders.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. What's your proudest moment as a racer?
I think being a lead-up man for John last year in the Vuelta, where he won 5 stages, and I felt like I contributed to it quite a lot, and it really felt like as a team we did a really good job, and I had a big role in that, and that felt really, really good. I was really proud of that.
Excellent. And so for the end of the year, what do you hope for the team?
Well, I hope that we can keep going up what we're doing at the moment. I mean, we are winning races everywhere, and the thing that we're missing is a Tour de France stage. So I think if we win a Tour de France stage, I think we can be quite happy at the end of the season.
Excellent. Do you know if you're going to the Tour yet?
I don't know for sure yet, no. But it's in the plan. But obviously you still have to see how it goes.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome.
And I just need a picture of you.
Oh man, Kathy, it sounded like you were in a wind tunnel.
But yeah, we were just outside the buses, and I do apologize for saying yeah and excellent all the time. But I was actually really nervous.
Yeah.
But you know what? I thought, I have grabbed Robert Plant, rock God in the street, and talked to him. So, come on. Get it together, girl. But anyway.
Well, Koen, thank you so much for interviewing with Kathy. That's pretty cool to be able to hear that. All right, so let's talk about what surprised us during this last week. Tim, why don't you start?
Yeah, I guess I start almost where you left off with your favourite moment, Chris. I think the big surprise for me was the way that both Betancur and Micah, neither of whom have much in the way of Grand Tour experience. I expected them both to fade in the final week, much as we saw with Mauro Sant'Ambrogio. But to see them right up there with the big guns day after day was both a surprise and a delight. I mean, these are two guys without much experience. Betancur, I think, raced the Giro in 2011, but that's his only real Grand Tour experience. Micah has raced a couple of Vuelta a Españas, but racing at the Vuelta in September is a very different proposition to racing in the kind of conditions that we saw in the Giro over the last 3 weeks. So, they both did fantastically well. They're both going to be clearly big prospects for the future. And, I'd go out on the limb and say that Betancur will become the second Colombian to win a Grand Tour. I think he'll get there before either Uran or Henao will. You've got to love his attacking style and his heart. As you said earlier, the way he chased back, having suffered that mechanical on the penultimate stage, was fantastic. So, I think we're looking for big things in the future from him.
Wow, Betancur will get a Grand Tour win before Uran. That's a bold prediction. How about you, Kathy? What surprised you during the final week?
I think it was that Sky won Best Team, because now people think I hate Sky. That's not necessarily true. I actually quite like a lot of guys from Sky. But I know that it's done on best overall time or whatever. But, Nibali's, his Astana teammates were with him most of the time for every stage. You didn't really see him alone very often. Yeah. But I don't know if it was I just wasn't watching or noticing, but it didn't seem that Sky was that evident around Iran, to be honest. And so, I know that's not what Best Team is, but that's what surprised me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Frankly, the thing that surprised me was that Cadel Evans gave up the second spot on the podium to Uran. I thought last week, Tim, when you and I were talking, he had like over a minute on Uran. He had quite a bit of time, and now he's in third by over a minute, right? So, I was really surprised that Evans gave up that much time, and it made me think, wow, if he would have gone into the second week in the lead, would he have given up that same amount of time? You've just never seen Cadel give up so much time like that. And maybe it's because he was just he was only thinking about the first spot on the podium and that was it. And so he really abused himself in the time trial. And I know he had a rough day, but it was interesting to see where he lost time and how he lost time.
Yeah, because I think it was not on the time trial, but I think it must have been on stage 20 when he lost a whole load of time. I mean, he only had 10 seconds on Uran at that point anyway. But I think he had a problem with some. I think his gears jammed on the climb, something like that. So I think he was clearly starting to lose some form in the final week, which wasn't really that big a surprise, given that we know he's gearing up for the Tour as well. But I think the one thing you can never accuse Cadell of is lacking in heart. I mean, he may have lacked a little bit physically, but he gave absolutely everything to make sure that at least he finished third.
Yeah, and when he rides up those mountains, he is all over that bike when he's suffering. I mean, he's just putting everything into it. It's
he really
incredible.
Rides immodestly.
That's right. Okay, so let's talk about the riders that we decided we were going to keep an eye on. We're not going to talk about Wiggins because we talked about him last week. He gets an incomplete, so yeah, Tim, you don't get to talk about him.
Fine.
Kathy, go ahead and give us more about Nibali. Just
Vincenzo Nibali, I think I'm going to give him a C. No, A+. I mean, he targeted the race. That was his objective. And, he worked really hard on his TT skills over the winter, and that really paid off. And then he won those 2 great stages. And like Tim said, he rode to win. He didn't ride not to lose. Yeah. And I just, excellent performance. He was strong the whole way through. Excellent.
Yeah, and he said now that he's going to target the Tour in next year, not this year, because I think that would be asking far, far too much of anyone. But if he comes to the Tour next year with the kind of form he's shown over the last 3 weeks, just people had better watch out.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep, never a defensive posture from Nibali. That was incredible. All right, we talked about Ryder. We gave him the same grade as Wiggins, so we'll move on to Samu Sanchez. Tim.
Yeah, so Sammy Sanchez, I gave him a D at the end of week 1. I gave him a D at the end of week 2. And I'd upgrade him at the end of this week to maybe a C, maybe a C-. I think, overall, he did target the Giro this year as his primary objective, and he was already way out of contention by stage 10. He did nearly find the consolation of a stage win in the final time trial, which would have made up for a poor finish. But Nibali beat him, and he beat him by almost a minute. But at least coming second in the time trial did elevate him to 12th overall in the end. But that's still a really disappointing result for him, given how high his hopes were going in. So he was just never really in the races at this one. I'm so disappointed for him because he's such a likable guy.
Yeah, and I don't know that he has the guys around him either. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what he looks like at the Vuelta, and maybe he can kind of redeem his season there. All right, Kathy, we gave all the guys that left the race basically, we gave him an F last week, so I don't know what you want to say about Finney, but I know that he doesn't normally abandon races.
Yeah, I mean, an incomplete. He must have been really sick because he never abandons. He doesn't believe in abandoning. It was disappointing.
Yeah, I think he was. I mean, I know that he had fevers, and you don't want to ride with that. And I also know when he came back to the States, he was hospitalized for a little bit.
Oh my God!
And he, everybody was like, "Oh, you're back in the States. You'll be able to ride the Nationals, this weekend." And he's like, "No, I don't think so."
Poor thing.
And he was definitely capable of winning the U.S. national time trials over the weekend, but he just didn't participate. So hopefully we'll see him get better, and who knows what. I'm hoping that maybe for World's time trial that he'll do something, or that he'll kind of reset and then be the classics guy that we were hoping he was going to be next year.
Yep.
So, okay, that brings us to Robert Gesink, who abandoned in the final week, and I have to give him an incomplete, an F.
And didn't I say?
You did.
That was a silly pick, Chris.
Yeah.
Although, I've made some silly picks, but
that first week gave me so much hope for Gesink, and then it just all fell apart as soon as we got into the mountains. And I thought that's where it would all come together for him.
But it always comes apart at some point. At some point, he has just like this disastrous day, and that's it. It's not little days of badness. It's just
it's one day that just
catastrophe, and then that's that. And
it was that day that he lost 3 minutes, and he was never the same after that. So, All right, Tim. Well, I will let you gloat. Tell us about your man, Mark Cavendish.
Okay.
Man crush.
Grade A plus 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 plus. It's got to be an A, really, hasn't it? He contested 5 sprints. He won 5 sprints. He completed the set of Grand Tour points jerseys on the final day in some style. He honoured Wouter Wieland on the 2nd anniversary of his death. And all I can say is, bring on the Tour. We'll get the renewal of hostilities with Greipel, with Sagan, hopefully with Marcel Kittel as well. And that sprint competition is going to be epic.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And he'll also probably be joined by John Degenkolb, who we gave a B last week, and we'll just keep it there because he was never really slated to finish the Giro anyway. We knew that he wasn't going to, but he did win a stage. And so, you got to give him credit for that. And it was a shame, Tim, that we didn't get to see him go head-to-head against Cav. But who knows? Maybe in July we'll be able to see that. All right, Kathy, and that brings us to your week 1 dark horse, Cadel Evans. How do you grade him?
Well, I'm going to give him a B+, because he was on the podium, and that should give him an A, but he did lose his 2nd place. And, I wish he would have attacked a bit more and given Nibali a bit more of a run for his money. But, he obviously couldn't. But, considering that nobody actually thought he was going to figure in the race at the beginning, he did very well. I don't know if this is true, but if this is Cadel trying to build up for the Tour, then who knows what's going to happen in July with him. I mean, if that's an honest assessment of what's going on here, that he's really using the Giro to build up, then who knows? He could be incredible in July. So
and Jim Ochowicz has come out and said, hasn't he, that Cadel will lead the Tour and TJ will play a supporting role. So their BMC are lined up behind Cadel. So
I wonder if TJ knows that.
He does now.
Okay, because he listens to our podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. All right, and then, of course, there's our 2 Sky Domestiques, one who turned into the leader. We'll talk about Rigoberto Urán first. I have to give him an A. And, having to pick up the mantle of leadership after the Bradley Wiggins abandon, who knows what could have happened if Sky was around him from the beginning. He had an incredible Giro, and to put gain that time back on Cadel and get the 2nd spot on the podium was really incredible. And, I got to give Henao a solid B+ for his work. He was there at all the right times, helping out both team leaders in the first week for Wiggins and in the second 2 weeks for Urán. So, a great job by the Sky Boys. It just didn't work out with Wiggins. So we'll see what happens in July when they supposedly get behind Chris Froome.
Can I just make an observation?
Please.
That if Sky thought a little bit more quickly, they'd have won 3 Grand Tours by now. They'd have won the Vuelta with Froome. They'd have won the Tour with Wiggins. And they probably would have won, they could very well have won the Giro with Urán. But, they just didn't pull their guys away from Wiggins in time.
Yeah, they didn't quite adjust quick enough.
No.
So that's a good observation. That's a good observation.
There you go.
All right,
Let's talk Sky rant.
Let's talk about our Italian wildcard teams really quick. So, Tim, how do you think Androni fared after the 3 weeks?
I think overall, actually, they'll be reasonably satisfied, but I think they'll be a little bit disappointed not to have done a little bit better. I think I said after the first week that they hadn't quite enjoyed the right combination of luck and opportunity, and I think really that continued all the way through the race. They really must have been looking on with some degree of envy as Bardiani and Vinny Fantini both enjoyed their moments in the sun with high GC placings and stage wins. But, no stage wins. They did get a lot of airtime in the breakaways. And to be fair, they were probably the most active team on a daily basis. But overall, Franco Pellizotti crept up to 11th, almost by stealth. He was 6th on stage 16, 6th again in the snow on Tre Cime. Just missed out on the place in the top 10, but probably wasn't aggressive enough to really warrant a place in the top 10 at the same time. But having said that, one of their youngsters, Diego Rosa, he was 23rd overall. He was 5th in the young rider standings. I think he'll be pretty happy with his race. Their version of J-Rod, Jackson Rodriguez, was 4th in the mountains competition. Picked up points steadily, but was never really strong enough to pick up the big points that Pirazzi did. And then last of all, I have to mention Matteo Gavazzi, who was thrown off the race after he was caught with his hand in the cookie jar, or at least he got toes from team cars and was promptly thrown off the race. So a slightly inopportune end for him.
Interesting. All right, so I was watching Bardiani, Valvole, CFX Inox, and for me, all 3 weeks for them have been an A, and this is no different. They did get the stage win in the first week. In the last week, Sasha Modolo takes second in that final stage behind Cav. And, of course, our boy Pirazzi wins the Mountains jersey with 82 points. I think that's 40 more than his next contender. So really no domestic team showed better than the Bardiani boys. So congratulations to them. And then, Kathy, how about your glow sticks?
Well, I think I need to stop calling them glow.
Some of them literally were glowing, weren't they?
Yeah, some of them were. I'm going to have to give them a C, and that grade has been brought down by the glower himself, Danilo De Luca, which I'll talk about in a second. But you know what? They had a stage victory, and Sant'Ambrosio's 9th overall, even though he faded quite badly. And Rafael Andriato took the prize for most kilometers in the breakaways. Oh. So they were always out lighting the way for all the others at the start out of the peloton. But you know what, bloody De Luca.
I don't even know why they let him start.
Didn't I say at the beginning? I don't know how this guy was still allowed to race. The team owner had said that he didn't want to sign him, but he came with a sponsor. I mean, this is just another example of how precarious, the finances of a team can be, that they would go with somebody that, that they just weren't happy with, but they had to because he brought along Acqua Sapone. And do you know what I thought was, sometimes you hear that somebody has failed a dope test like 2 hours after they've
taken the
been
test.
Tested.
Yeah.
And then, this was out of competition. This was in the end of April. And they wait till the 3rd week of the Giro. Doesn't somebody say, hey, don't have this guy on your team because it's in, we're not sure that he's clean or whatever. I mean, I just think that there's no real consistency between, keeping it quiet until the B sample is test positive as well, which, is probably the right thing. But, it's just got to be faster, and there's just got to be more consistency. But, he's gone now. He's got to be gone now for life, surely. Because, this is the 10th time or something. And it's just a real shame because, you could see it coming a mile off.
Well, that, and it happened on the same day. All this news came out the same day, the day they had to cancel the stage. Yeah. And so, for the people who organized the Giro and RCS and all those people, I mean, that had to be a really discouraging day for them. But okay, well, overall though, I give this Giro, if we had to rate the Giro, star-wise, I'd give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was that good. Yeah. So congratulations to all the riders for finishing, and for RCS for organizing and having to change, and all the logistics that you did to make it such a great race. And congratulations to you for that. All right. So let's talk finally about our Fantasy Giro League for VeloVoices. We had 115 people sign up, and thank you all for signing up. The leaderboard has changed quite a bit over the 3 weeks, but we've come down to our final 3. And 2 of them were in our final 3 last week. John Baines, unfortunately, took a nosedive in the final week. So I'm sure he's not going to be happy about that.
He predicted that, though, didn't he? He was never happy with, he never felt secure with his high rating.
Yeah, so number 1, the winner of the VeloVoices Fantasy Giro is Socks Off Ticked Off Bank, managed by Machiavelli with 8,844 points. Wow. So that's incredible. Second, and not very far behind, was Andy Warhol's Hairless Dog, managed by Rich Mutt with 8,514 points. And then third, and this guy's been on the leaderboard almost from the beginning, Prettiest in Pink, managed by Colin B. with 8,079 points. So congratulations to you 3. We have to figure out how to get a hold of you because we have some refrigerator magnets that Kathy has been getting produced to send to you. So congratulations. Now, no race would be complete without at least giving some credit to the Lanterne Rouge. And the Lanterne Rouge this year goes to Debster's Destroyers, managed by Debamundo, and she had 2,020 points.
I can't believe I wasn't last.
Well, let's get to us. Okay, so anyway, for everybody who signed up for our league, thank you so much. We will definitely be running another league for the Tour de France.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll keep you informed about when we set that up, and you can all go sign up again. And hopefully Cherie won't pick her names out of a hat again. Because Cherie was first of the VeloVoices. She was 13th overall out of 115 people with 7,107 points. That is fantastic.
Gosh.
Jack wasn't that far behind. He was 22nd overall and second of the VeloVoices with 6,796 points. So good job, Jack. I was third overall, and I kept going up, but I just couldn't quite catch Jack. I had 6,368 points, and I was 32nd overall. Tim, on the other hand,
just kept going down.
Tim lost about half of his team due to injury or whatever.
Oh, God. I finished with fewer riders than the Neuchâtel team time trial team.
Tim finished 4th overall of the VeloVoices, 54th overall with 5,623 points, and he finished 1 place behind my training partner, Pig Racer. So now I'm not going to hear the end of it. He's going to tell me, at least I beat Tim, and he's the brains of your operations. All right.
Is Pig Racer coming to France with you?
Yes, he is.
Is that Chad?
That's Chad.
Okay.
He will be there, and we'll both have signed up for Fantasy Tour de France, so there'll be a lot of trash talking in that final week.
Okay.
All right, so then we had Ant in 5th place with 4,829 points. He was 76th overall. And then we had Kitty. You were of the VeloVoices, you were the Lanterne Rouge with 4,565 points, 85th overall.
That does not surprise me.
And I did do the math. If you and Ant combined your points, you would have beat the winner.
There you go. Team Fondant. Yes.
Team Fondant. But you only would have just beat the winner.
Oh, well.
So that was a great competition and really fun to watch. Thank you again, everybody, for participating. All right, so Tim, what now that the Giro is over, what do we have to look forward to? What's happening in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I'm going to be sleeping a lot.
Right.
But, I mean, no sooner has the Giro ended than the build-up to the Tour de France begins. I mean, that's now just under 5 weeks away. And over the next couple of weeks, we've got really the 2 big build-up races that both start in the next week or so. And most of the major Tour GC contenders will most likely be at one or the other. So we've got first up, we've got the Criterium du Dauphiné, which starts this weekend, and then the following weekend we have the Tour de Suisse. So if we talk about the Dauphiné first, that's 8 days starting this coming Sunday, the 2nd of June, and finishing on the 9th. And looking at the parcours, this is one of the toughest Dauphiné courses I can remember seeing. There's just one flat stage for the sprinters, so you can be sure that pretty much none of the sprinters will bother turning up. And pretty much every other stage will stretch the riders in some way, or it will certainly force them to pay close attention to possible attacks. So let me just quickly highlight 4 stages, just to give you a flavour of what to expect. So stage 1, no gentle introduction. The opening stage features 2 Category 1s up front, then a Cat 2 and finally a Cat 3 summit finish, which should be a slugfest between the punchers, with the GC men having to pay kind of fairly close attention to make sure they don't lose time. So, difficult start, no easing your way in. Then stage 5 has a summit finish on Val Morel, which is just under 13 kilometres at 7%. So that'll get the lactic acid burning in the legs. And then the highlight really, stage 7 gives us, before it appears twice on the same day in the Tour, we get Alpe d'Huez. Now, it doesn't feature at the end of the stage. It actually features early on. And then there's another Cat 1 climb thrown in towards the end before there's a short, punchy uphill finish. But that will hurt a lot of people. And then, just to finish it off, stage 8, another summit finish at the top of the Category 1 Rizul climb, which is, again, it's about 14 kilometres. It's about 7%. So there are some really, really tough stages in the Dauphiné. And it's a fitting test, I think, ahead of the 100th Tour. So Bradley Wiggins won the Dauphiné last year. So it's a sign of just how important and how big an indication of form it is ahead of the Tour. So that's the Dauphiné, which, as I said, starts this weekend, and then the Tour de Suisse, which starts the following weekend. The first 2 stages of this 9-day race overlap with the last 2 days of the Dauphiné, but even more so, this is a parcours which it will give any sprinters brave enough to show up altitude sickness. It's a little bit more of an all-round test than the Dauphiné. It's bookended by a pair of individual time trials. Stage 1's fairly innocuous. It's 8 kilometres. It's undulating, but it's reasonably flat. But the final stage is an absolute brute. It is 27 kilometres, but the last 10 are uphill. And looking at the map, it looks to be at around 9% average. So, so if we compare that to the stage we've just seen at the Giro, it's significantly steeper. And that's a horrible stage. It's the last stage, and it's a real killer. And we've got a couple of climbs in between, a couple of Hors category climbs on some of the intermediate stages that all top out at above 2,000 meters. There's one, I think it's the Newfoundland Pass on stage 2. It's close to 2,500 meters. There's a summit finish at Crans Montana as well, which is a climb that's well known in this race. But really, it's that final time trial that's the big headliner. It will really reveal who has great climbing form and who doesn't. Although, of course, you have to remember that great form in the middle of June counts for nothing when you get to the middle of July.
Right. All right. Well, it sounds like we have some great racing to look forward to. And so, keep listening to our podcast, and we'll keep you informed about what's going on in those races. And make sure you follow us on Twitter, especially, as we'll be tweeting a lot of these races. That's it for tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Be sure to check out the blog at www.velovoices.com. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/VeloVoices. And, of course, follow us on Twitter at VeloVoices. Tim, Kathy, it was an awesome Giro. It was so fun to work with you guys, and I can't wait till the Tour.
Yay!
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
VeloVoices. Many voices, one passion. Pro cycling for fans by fans.